We're making it work. So we're going to talk about malware. As Renee would say, anything that she doesn't like is malware. But
that's not what I said.
We're going to be talking about the concept of malware, what it is, types of malware, and then we're going to dive into 3 specific types of malware: worms, ransomware, and botnets. So, our little intro. What is malware? Malware is not Windows. Windows is not malware, as much as Renee would love to say it is. Malware is an unwanted program that disrupts, damages, or provides access to a computer, and it intentionally is harmful to the computer, a server, or a network. So we're going to go over some types of malware. This is a long list, so we're not going to spend too much time on each thing. But we're looking at things like ransomware, Trojans, worms, rootkits, backdoors, viruses, botnets, keyloggers, logic bombs, spyware, and potentially unwanted programs, which seems very general, but think of a potentially unwanted program as like you accidentally downloaded a Internet Explorer toolbar when you were like 8 on the computer. That is a potentially unwanted program. These are all different types of malware, because again, malware is a broad term that describes anything that intentionally harms or damages or provides access to a computer. So you can think of things like Trojans and worms as causing damage to the computer, and things like rootkits and backdoors as providing access. So our focus today, like I said a minute ago, is going to be worms, ransomware, and botnets. And we'll have a fun little botnet story at the end to fill it all in. So we're going to start with our worms. The first steps for malware. So what is a worm? A worm is malware that spreads itself. It does not require human interaction in the same way a virus would. A virus, you have to download, you have to interact with like an exe or some kind of file. A worm is something that can reproduce itself. It spreads using vulnerable services, email attachments, file shares. So say you open a bad email attachment at work and your work has a local storage that everybody can access. All of a sudden the worm has spread to every computer on the network. That is how easy it is for that to spread. So what kind of damage can they do? Creeper was the first ever worm created in 1971 by Bob Thomas. It was just the first idea of what could be done. Like, nobody had any sort of idea how computers would spread these worms and these viruses and all these things that were created. So Creeper was the very first attempt. It didn't cause any damage because it was never meant to. It was fully a test. It spread over ARPANET, which meant this is way before the World Wide Web even existed. Nobody was at risk other than computers on this one network. The next one, the first worm that was large enough to cause damage to many computers, which I've talked about before if you watched my previous talk on the Computer Fraud Abuse Act, was the Morris worm. It was the first case under the Computer Fraud Abuse Act. It was created in 1988 by Robert Tappan Morris. His friend called the New York Times and said, "Hey, my buddy created this worm. How much trouble is he in?" And they couldn't even tell anybody. He had infected, 1/10 of the entire connected internet at the time. NASA unplugged all of their computers. They were so concerned that they were going to get hit by this worm. He caused $10 million in damages. And the thing about this worm that caused so much damage was he said, okay, it's going to infect computers at a certain rate. And people are going to set flags to stop this from infecting their computer because it'll look infected already. So he said 1 in every 7 times this worm is going to reinfect the computer that it is on. And 1 in 7 was way too small of a number for how small the internet was at the time. I think it was about 60,000 computers. And it just reproduced itself on a computer so many times that it left the computer inoperable. You couldn't touch it. It just wouldn't work. The Morris worm spread using a vulnerable service. It spread using Finger, which was something that they used at the time. That was like a database that was amongst all of the computers. So once it got into the database, it spread everywhere. The worm who has caused the most damage ever was the My Doom worm. It spread via email in 2004. They have never found out who created this worm. It emailed so many copies of itself. So it would reproduce. It would send an email with an attachment, and if you open that attachment, it would send an email to everybody else. But it just kept sending and sending and sending. It accounted for a quarter of all emails worldwide. And like, you gotta think in 2004, the internet was still a little small, but a quarter of all emails at all worldwide, that's an insane number. It did about $35 billion in damages, and that's in 2004 money. That's not accounting for inflation now. Like, 35 billion in 2004. No worm has ever caused as much damage since. Next, we're going to talk about ransomware. So ransomware, this is how hackers make a quick buck. It's malware that completely takes over a computer, and it demands a ransom to decrypt files. It spreads via worms, trojans, or viruses. Once they get into your computer in whatever means necessary, they encrypt all the files, and they say, hey, we'll decrypt them for you, we'll give you the decryption key, but you have to send this much money in an anonymous way to whatever. It usually involves cryptocurrency. Hey, give us 10 Bitcoin, whatever. 10 Bitcoin is a lot now, but you know, in the early days of crypto, 10 Bitcoin was a lot of what they asked for. It would be smaller now, but they also will often threaten to post sensitive information. They'll say, hey, we have your browser history and we're going to share it with everybody on your contact list, or we have these horrible pictures of you, and like, you know that they don't most of the time. I mean, if you're smart, but they're lying. They've encrypted your files. They don't even know what's on there. But they make threats to do something bad if the ransom is not paid, so that you will be more inclined to pay it. So the first ever ransomware was the AIDS Trojan. It was created in 1989 by Joseph Kopp, and it was spread via a floppy disk. And what he did was he made all these floppy disks, and he sent them to members of the World Health Organization when they were having a very large gathering about the AIDS crisis. There was a warning in the pamphlet that it came with that it would cause damage to your computer. So people should have been aware when they put it in. But it was kind of to bring more light to the AIDS crisis, make people pay more attention. You had to pay $189 to be decrypted. You had to send your mail in cash, mail it to an address in Panama, and then they would mail you back your decryption key. I'm not sure if anybody actually paid to have their files decrypted. They shouldn't have put the floppy disk in. They were warned, but that was the first ever ransomware. CryptoLocker was one of the first larger examples. It was first posted on the internet in September of 2013. It was spread via infected zip files attached to emails. You had to pay about $400 for that to be decrypted. That was $400 US or 400 euros. They did not actually do the conversion math, so anybody paying in euros, they didn't get a deal. They ended up having to pay more. Again, I'm not sure how many people paid for their stuff to be unlocked. You can you can see a lot of times that the money will just sit in a Bitcoin wallet and actually has no way to be traced back to whoever sent it. They don't keep track of who sends money. They don't actually decrypt your files. People who paid CryptoLocker usually did not get decrypted. WannaCry was a very interesting attack that began on May 12th of 2017. They used the NSA's Eternal Blue exploit to spread the ransomware. So the NSA was basically sitting on this exploit for Windows. And it was a exploit in the Windows networking systems where it was an SMB. SMB was like written in a way that they left insecure ports or something along those lines. And the NSA found it and they were like, we're not going to tell Microsoft, we're going to sit on this, as the NSA does. And they sat on it just a little too long and somebody else found it. They put it out there for everybody to see, and then the people behind WannaCry picked it up and they said, hey, we're going to use this. And they sent it out to as many people as possible. This one spread so fast that people couldn't really keep up, but there was actually a kill switch in the code where it tried to ping an IP address, and once the IP address was available, it would kill itself. It would just turn off. It would stop spreading. So it was searching for this domain or for this IP, and somebody just registered it. Just a random person was like, I'm gonna register this IP, I'm gonna see what happens, this domain. And as soon as it was registered, the ransomware stopped spreading. You had to pay $300 to be decrypted on that, fun fact. I always thought, side tangent, I always thought that ransomware was thousands of dollars to decrypt your data. I always thought it'd be so expensive. But looking into it, it makes so much sense that it's under $500 because they want you to spend the money, and they know people don't have thousands of dollars to decrypt their data. But in my head, it was always this really big thing. Another side tangent, recently, Lockbit, a ransomware group, was said to have been shut down by the FBI. They seized their domain on the dark web, and there was this whole thing, and they are still currently ransoming people. So, can't believe the FBI, I guess. And now we're going to talk about botnets, and we're going to get into my favorite story of botnets. So, what is a botnet? It is a group of internet-connected devices, and each one is infected with a bot that you don't know is running, and it responds to a command and control software. So, someone somewhere is sitting at a computer that all of these bots are answering to, and they are saying, this is what you're going to do. They're created by computers that are infected with a virus or a worm that install something on your computer or device. It can be any device, really. And they get rented out to the highest bidder. They're usually used for DDoS attacks, but they can also be used for fraudulent ad clicks or Bitcoin mining. So, Configure was one of the first big on the news ones, although it wasn't the first botnet by any means. The first botnet actually was a dude who got sued for fraudulent ad clicks. He just had a bunch of computers set to click all the time. He got sued for it, and that was in 2003, I believe. But this was a computer worm detected in 2008. It was a worm that performed a dictionary attack on every admin account for any IP it could reach. And it is one of the largest ever known computer worm infections. It spread very far. Storm, which some people may have heard of before, but that is one that gets talked about a lot in the cybersecurity space. You can still see certain IPs pop up that used to be used in Storm. But it was a Trojan horse detected in January of 2007, and it accounted for 8% of malware on Windows computers. So 8% of all malware belongs to Storm. And then Eve was active from 2013 until it was found in 2016, and I believe it was dismantled in 2017. It spread through fake downloads and email, and that was just used to generate fake clicks on ads. So some of them are less severe than others. Some botnets are used to massively destroy websites and to take down Microsoft's site and do all these things, and other ones are just trying to get a couple dollars. Mm-hmm.
Can you dive into what a dictionary attack is?
Yeah. So a dictionary attack is when you take a list of usernames and passwords, like common ones, and you just go through and try them.
Oh.
So like say you have username admin, password admin, username admin, password, password. And they just try all of these common attacks over and over until one lets you in.
So that's why it's still a botnet, is they're using like hundreds or thousands of these accounts, just like randomly inputting and trying to guess the password.
So they spread initially by like worms and viruses. So like you download something bad and then your computer just runs the bot like as a service behind the scenes, so you don't know it's running. And then it looks for other things to infect. So it'll send out emails from your email, or it'll try to get you to download send a link to download something to somebody else. And then yes, it'll try like usernames and passwords and as much like digging into your computer as possible. And it is again usually sold to like the highest bidder to do like DDoS attacks and to try running more dictionary attacks on other people's computers. And like if you want to get into Microsoft servers, they're going to lock you out. But if you want to get into Western servers, say you try to brute force dictionary attack for hours from different computers, you can just say like, well, this IP has gotten caught, we're going to move on to the next one. So you have these bots constantly running, constantly trying usernames and passwords. So we're going to talk about my favorite botnet and my favorite little story. This is when Minecraft goes too far. So Mirai was a botnet. It turned Linux devices into remote run bots, and they all interacted to create the botnet. It was identified in August of 2016, and what it does is it scans for IoT devices. So your Google Home, your Ring doorbell, that sketchy camera you bought off Amazon 3 years ago, anything in your home that's connected to the internet. And it runs a dictionary attack. And it tries to connect to these things with these usernames and passwords that people don't change. So say your mom bought a Ring doorbell, and she doesn't call you to come help her set it up, she just puts it on her door, and she doesn't change the password from admin. Or your grandma buys a router and plugs it in like the internet people tell her, and she uses the basic Netgear username and password. You're asking for trouble if you're not changing things. It would avoid ranges like for the post office, the Department of Defense, the FBI, anywhere where they thought they'd get caught. Once they're found, they try the default username and password, they do a dictionary attack, anything they can find. And it was actually used in many attacks that took down websites, and actually all of Liberia just shut down by the Mirai botnet. So where did it come from? The software was originally created and used for Minecraft servers. So it would DDoS Minecraft servers, and it would DDoS companies offering DDoS protection to Minecraft servers. So what happened was there was this dude who was he was going to college, he was really into Minecraft, and he got this job working on this Minecraft server. And he really enjoyed working on the Minecraft server, and then the Minecraft server got DDoSed. And him and his friends were like, we have this idea, we're going to offer this protection. We're going to say, hey, we're offering DDoS protection for Minecraft servers. They underestimated the amount of people who also offered DDoS protection against Microsoft servers. So one of the guys comes to the rest of the group and he's like, hey, I've been working on this botnet. I have an idea. And like, you're about to get in trouble when that happens. But they come and they're like, hey, I have this botnet I've been working on. Let's see what we can do with it. So at that point, they're DDoSing Minecraft servers And they're going to those servers and they're going, hey, we can offer you protection with our DDoS protection. And if you remember, the market's kind of flooded. So they start DDoSing the DDoS protectors. And they're like, if we look the best, they're gonna pick us. And that it worked. It did work. And that's what the Mirai botnet was created for. And now the Mirai botnet is actually one of the largest botnets to ever be created, and it is one of the most destructive. The code for the botnet is open source. You can go find the Mirai code. It's not on GitHub. It's on HackerOne, I believe. But you can go look at the code. You can find it. It's used a lot. And, like where I work, I do a lot of security stuff, like looking into logs and who was trying to get into what files and servers and whatever. And our log aggregator will actually tell me if it was a address that had been associated with Mirai at any point. So it'll tell you like, hey, this was used in the Mirai botnet, because it is that big and it is that dangerous and harmful. So that's the fun little story about Minecraft ruining a lot of people's day. Like the entire country of Liberia. That's insane, right? Like it took down an entire country. And that's all I got. Does anybody have any questions? We're gonna go Space Dog first.
How many Mirai IPs have you seen at work?
Oh, at least 50 a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's bad. So, without explaining too much about my work, we offer software as a service. So we have an internet-facing, we have 8 clients and each have an internet-facing app that we run. So we're monitoring all 8 of those environments, and you constantly get like Mirai notifications because we don't have a specific like web firewall set up. So a lot of just junk traffic comes through.
So are they still Mirai or just were once Mirai?
That's the thing. Both. So some have been like reclaimed and then like taken over again. That's the problem with the botnet is like it goes for insecure things. And any Internet of Things device, like again, like a Ring doorbell can be part of the Mirai botnet. Like that's how bad it is. So a lot of them are still associated with Mirai. Every once in a while, you'll just see like legitimate traffic that just gets marked as bad. But it's very rare that I see it. Like very rare.
Could you make like an automated software that, because you can like detect if you see a Mirai IP address go through your system, could you automate it so that way you could like DDoS their system and then inject like a healthy version of software that would reclaim some of those password fields? Which would be heavily illegal probably.
I think that
is that a possibility?
I don't think taking them down would help because there's no way to like take it down and then like inject like code into their like. I mean, I guess you could totally just try the dictionary attack.
Could I make a counter bot? Could I make my own botnet like theirs?
Yeah, that just
good,
tries username and password.
That rechanges their password and has on their Ring doorbell that says, "Hey, dude, change your password to blah blah blah." And it's like you should be aware that this is a thing.
I think that's a good thought.
Okay.
I'm not sure how feasible.
If I'm in jail in 5 years, just
I'll know.
I'll call you.
Yeah, call me up.
Okay.
Adam.
Did the Mirai guys go to jail?
No, they're not in jail. The creators are still at large. A lot of people have been accused of being the people to write the code of the Mirai botnet, but because it was posted online and so many people have used it, nobody's ever been arrested. There's been a lot of people questioned and accused And if you look it up, there's like on the Wikipedia page, there's like a list at the bottom of people who've been accused of being the Mirai botnet creator, but no, nobody's ever been arrested for it. Space Talk?
Back to the slide about like introducing botnets with Eve on it.
Yeah.
Eve used to generate clicks on
On ads.
ads.
Yeah. So what they do.
My question is was it like people? Who did that benefit? Like, did the people that put the ads out buy this to click on their own ads?
So from my understanding, what happens is somebody creates a website, and you create the site, and then you get it's like YouTube ads. When you click on a YouTube ad, you're supporting the creator of the channel.
Oh.
So it's the same thing where like somebody creates a website and they create fake ad clicks. So they're getting the revenue from the ad clicks.
Okay.
Like Facebook runs ads and they get money back every time somebody clicks. So that's the idea, is they would create websites.
Okay.
The funny thing about Eve is that they would use like user agent switching to make it look like it was coming from like cell phones, and it was mostly computers and servers, and they were like, no, we're going to make it look like it's cell phones, and we're going to change what browser it looks like it's coming from, and they tried to make it look like legitimate traffic, and it did for a long time. I mean, it ran for 3 years before anybody found it. The funny thing about botnets is a lot of times they'll run for like 2, 3, 5 years before anybody like notices they even exist. The crazy thing about Mirai is that it would infect like Internet of Things devices, and you're not going to notice that your Ring doorbell is running slow, or that the camera in your house isn't quite right. Like you're going to be like, oh, my internet's weird. It's just taking a little too long to hit the endpoint. Yeah.
So does a botnet like Mirai, does it work like some evil version of Google Colab where like different people can take control of the botnet to do different DDoSing, or is there multiple Mirais?
The way botnets work is there is a command and control center that all of the bots answer to, and that's usually the thing that's like for sale. So Mirai is just kind of the name given to the code that is used. So the original Mirai was used to DDoS Minecraft servers, but the code has been spread around and has been used in so many ways that it's kind of impossible to know which bots are answering to which command and control. So when you're purchasing a botnet, it's going to the highest bidder. You get to choose what you do with it, and the command and control center can tell how many endpoints are responding to it, and they can say, well, you're purchasing 1 million devices or whatever. So it just kind of like, it goes to the highest bidder, and they can find out how many endpoints are connected, and Mirai is just kind of a general name given to any bot that's using the Mirai code now. But because the code, like, again, you can't tell how many are responding without being at the command and control. You don't really know how big it is from the outside. You just know how many are infected with the code.
So would you be able to find the command and control? Like, could a government find where these bots are getting these commands from and shut it down?
Yes, sometimes they do. Sometimes they can track it down. Sometimes they can't. It really it depends on if it's still running, because they can just take it offline. They can say, okay, we did our DDoS, it's out, it's off. It makes it harder to track. There's ways that they get around getting caught. Obviously, that's how it goes on for so long. But yeah, there are ways that the government can step in and try to find who is running it.
Does Mirai use exploits to make the infected devices part of the botnet? And if so, why haven't those exploits been fixed after Mirai has been out for so many years?
Good question. It's because Mirai just does a dictionary attack. It just tests usernames and passwords. it can't really be fixed because people are just not changing the default password for their Internet of Things devices. Yeah, that could be a service. But yeah, that's what it comes down to is like the attack basically searches IPs to look for anything that responds with like a username and password prompt. And it just tries usernames and passwords. So there's nothing you can really do to like patch or fix insecure usernames and passwords other than changing them when you get your own devices. Yeah.
Could the manufacturers that, so like when obviously, like could manufacturers generate random usernames and passwords as your default username and password? Is that what they already do?
No. So like, I don't know if you've ever purchased a new router on your own,
Yeah,
but like
so
Netgear has
Netgear,
like
blah, blah,
basic
blah.
names, and then they have the like their passwords all follow the like noun, adjective, number. Like that's all Netgear passwords.
But are those randomly generated though?
So
To the
only to an extent.
Okay.
There are like duplicates. There's like you could run a dictionary attack using Netgear
Okay.
usernames and passwords. I think a lot of companies could generate random passwords, but I do think it would cost more money to have to set username and passwords on on their software and be able to print it out for you to read. Like, you know, it's easier to have just like a default set.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can rely on companies to fix this issue. I think this is a skill issue. Skill issue.
You're
Change your
right.
usernames and passwords. Anything else? Move on.
Was the attack on the C Club Minecraft server Mirai?
No, that was a Bitcoin miner, I think.
Yeah.
And okay, I'm being filmed, and I want to say, Space Dog has always said that might have been his fault, but I think it might have been my fault. I think that it could have been my fault.
Okay, the
I want to
question
go on
is,
record.
who set the password to Minecraft?
One of us, and I think it could have been me.
I think it was me.
We'll
I
never
don't know.
know. Because we all used the same account. We all used the sysadmin
Yeah.
account. That was where we went